"Don't call the police," the woman whispered as I stood frozen in my own living room. "If you do, you'll never find out why I'm here." I had been home from deployment for less than 10 minutes. My bags were still beside the door, my uniform still smelled like dust and rain, and yet a stranger was standing in the kitchen wearing my late mother's blue sweater. I stared at her, unable to understand what I was seeing. Then she slowly turned toward me, tears filling her eyes. "Please," she said, "don't you recognize me?" I had spent 11 months overseas telling myself that home would be exactly as I remembered it. The little house at the end of Maple Street. The crooked mailbox. The old oak tree beside the porch. But the moment I stepped inside, something felt wrong. A second pair of shoes sat near the door. There were photographs on the wall that I had never seen. Someone had placed fresh flowers beside my mother's old wooden clock. And now this woman was standing in my kitchen as if she belonged there. Before we begin, if you enjoy emotional and inspiring stories like this, make sure to support the channel by liking this video, subscribing, and sharing your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories of kindness, hope, and humanity. "My name is Claire," she said quietly. "I know this looks terrible." "Terrible?" I repeated. "You're living in my house." She looked down at the floor. "I know." My hand moved toward my phone, but she stepped closer. "Your mother would have wanted you to hear me first." The words stopped me cold. "My mother died 3 years ago." "I know." "How do you know my mother?" Claire walked toward the old clock and gently touched its wooden frame. "Because she saved my life." I said nothing. Claire told me that 6 months before my deployment, she had been sleeping in her car after losing her job and falling behind on rent. One freezing evening, my mother had found her outside the grocery store. Instead of giving her money and walking away, she invited Claire home for dinner. "She told me something that night," Claire said. She said, "A person can lose everything and still deserve somewhere safe to begin again." My throat tightened. My mother had always been that kind of person. She never talked about the people she helped. She simply helped them. Claire continued, "She let me stay in the guest room while I got back on my feet. She helped me find work. She even taught me how to repair furniture because she said everyone should know how to build something with their own hands." "Then why are you still here?" Claire hesitated. "Because your mother left me a letter." She opened a drawer and pulled out a sealed envelope. My name was written across it in my mother's handwriting. My hands began to shake. I opened it carefully. "My son, if you are reading this, you are home. I wish I could be there to welcome you. There is something you need to understand. Claire is not a stranger. She became family when you were away. I asked her to stay here until you returned because I knew you would need someone who understood what it means to come home carrying things you cannot easily explain." I stopped reading. For months overseas, I had imagined my return. I had imagined my mother sitting on the porch, asking whether I was eating properly. I had imagined telling her stories she would pretend not to worry about. But she was gone. Claire watched silently as tears rolled down my face. "She knew you would be angry," Claire whispered. "She said you might feel like I had taken your home. She wanted me to tell you that I never wanted to replace her." I folded the letter against my chest. Then I noticed something else. A small photograph sat beneath the envelope. It showed my mother, smiling beside Claire. On the back were 4 words. "Family is sometimes chosen." I sat down. For the first time since returning, I stopped trying to be strong. Claire sat across from me. "I almost left before you came home," she said. "But your mother made me promise I would stay until you returned." "Why?" Claire smiled sadly. She said soldiers sometimes come home to a house and discover they no longer know where they fit. Those words broke something inside me. I had spent 11 months protecting strangers while secretly wondering whether anyone would understand the person I had become. That evening, Claire made tea exactly the way my mother used to. We sat at the kitchen table until midnight. She told me about the garden my mother had planted. I told her about the tiny mistakes I had made overseas, the nights I could not sleep, and the fear that followed me home. She never interrupted. Weeks passed. Claire eventually found a small apartment and moved out, but she never became a stranger again. Every Sunday, we had dinner together. 1 year later, on the anniversary of my mother's death, Claire and I stood beneath the old oak tree. She handed me a small wooden box. Inside was a note. I opened it and read my mother's final message. If Claire is still beside you, then you have learned what I hoped you would. Home is not only a place you return to. Home is the person who reminds you that you still belong. I looked at Claire. She was crying. So, she whispered, do I still feel like a stranger? I smiled through my tears. No, I said. You feel like family. And for the first time since deployment, the house behind us truly felt like home. Sometimes life changes the people we expect to find waiting for us. Sometimes the person standing where a familiar face once stood is not there to take something away, but to remind us that love can survive even after loss. We do not always get to choose who enters our lives, but we can choose whether to open the door. If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts or a similar experience in the comments. And if you believe kindness can change a person's life, like this video and subscribe for more inspiring stories about kindness, hope, courage, compassion, and humanity.